Back at our studios, 365 Sports. This segment brought to you by Richard Carr Motors, the Baylor Bear Hotline, and guess who has joined us in the studio? Hello.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
We're doing well.
We're good?
We're doing well. So, this college football playoff thing, I know you're on the committee.
What are you even talking about?
So, hey, tell me if you can go there or not, but I have to ask this question off the top.
Yeah.
They have shown the distribution, and the SEC, Big Ten are getting their big chunk, and the ACC slightly ahead of the Big 12. Was there any chance that you, the ACC, and the Big 12 could have said no to this, or was there really no choice? And it's kind of surprised me that it's such a disparity.
Yeah, great question. I think it was a difficult position to be in because those numbers, those percentages, right, were really based on three different things. Historical contribution, so meaning, performance on the field, number of teams that had been in the past CFP games, and then multimedia rights value of conferences, and then TV viewership. And so, those two conferences, had a strong case for that. So, really, really difficult to overcome that if you were, certainly the ACC or the Big 12. We didn't get credit, like the Big 12 didn't get credit for Oklahoma or for, Texas, because no longer in our conference, right? And so the only one that you got credit for, in terms of historical contribution was TCU. And and Baylor, right? If we would have been at 12 in the last 5 years, Baylor would have been in it twice. But none of that counted. So now the positive is the look in, and to have a look in, after 2 years, and to be able to reset potentially and look at again TV ratings, right? Performance on the field, and then has there been any material realignment? And so you'll have an opportunity. And so the Big 12, what do we have to do? We've got to perform on the football field, and we really got to be focused about being better, more competitive in football.
And I get that it's about those individuals.
I don't think Oklahoma and Texas should not be given their success to the SEC.
I get that, it's about those teams partially when it comes to their success, but when they did it, they weren't there. So that's a little revisionist history. And my problem with the selection committee always was they're basing so much of it on something that happened in the past, and you're about to be on it. It's way more about what's happening now as far as who's the most deserving teams.
Did you get credit for Cincinnati?
It's a great question. I believe we did.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm not 100% positive. Here's where I'm not positive. I'm not sure that we got credit for Cincinnati and that the SEC got credit for
Texas and OU.
Texas and
because
OU.
of whatever. Okay.
But it is more about what's happening today. Like when you go in those meetings, it's not about last year at all. It's about this team this year and.
Well, that's where quite frankly, that's where I struggle with the whole format conversation, access, right? I get, hey, look, conference champion, yes, go. The four Power Four, right? I get that, right? But then to guarantee other spots, earn those, right? Earn them. If you're really the best, and have the best football, then you're going to earn them. They're going to be ranked, the first 2 years, the last 2 years of this current, CFP deal, 1 through 12. Not sure where it goes, the new 6 years. Is it going to be 12 or 14? But again, they're going to be ranked. And so let's protect the conference champions when we think about Power Four, and then let's the next highest rank. You've got to, I believe, and I'm an advocate for, guaranteeing a spot for the G5. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's the highest ranked conference champion. I think it's just my opinion, personally. I think it has to be the highest ranked G5 team, period. So, because you could, with the G5, you could have a conference champion, and then you could have maybe a team that loses in a conference championship in another conference, and they're ranked higher. And so I think you got to give it to the highest ranked G5 team.
Well, I think that's the best news for the G5, and that's the best chance they're going to have to prove that they belong is the best team that's around, and not one that gets penalized for something that none of the other leagues will get penalized for.
Yeah. So, hey, we got it. It is what it is. That's where we settled, and we the Big 12 got to make the best of it. And we talk about being the best men's basketball conference in the country, and we now need to do that in football and put a lot of energy toward what that looks like.
So if it's that way in football, we would go back the last 20 years in basketball. The last Big Ten champion was Michigan State in 2002. The last 2000 Michigan State. The last SEC champion would have been Kentucky in 2012. You guys, the Big 12 with Kansas and Baylor, I think that they need to start giving you back some units.
It's there's a lot of conversation, as going on about AQs versus more spots for teams, particularly Power 4 teams, et cetera. And again, you didn't ask me. I think it's really difficult to take away AQs. I think that's what makes the NCAA men's basketball tournament special. I'm open to adding teams. When you think about the first 4 out, this time around, you could argue that they're better than some, not all, but some of the AQs, right? And so don't want to take away opportunities, but maybe add opportunities.
If you sat in a room with Greg Sankey, and I'm sure you have, or with Tony Petitti, when you talk to them or have that opportunity, or if it's a group, are they listening to you?
Yeah. I don't know Commissioner Petitti. I know Commissioner Sankey. As you know, I was at Missouri, right? And so I sat in a lot of meetings with him, and I have the utmost respect for him. And I think he's got a challenge in terms of doing what's best for the SEC and his institutions. But I also feel like he really cares about the entire enterprise when we think about just college athletics, the collegiate athletic model, all of those things. I think he has sensitivity, and he does care about the totality, the bigger picture.
Mack, I think this happened, especially now that this is such a huge business. It's corporate, it feels like Amazon and Google and Facebook and all this, almost like Silicon Valley in regard, in that I think something gets lost in that is if you serve your customers well, it's going to be good for you. If you make your employees happy, it's going to be good for you at the top. And I think sometimes the people at the top just I don't care what happens below me as long as I get mine. And I think that trickles over into college athletics a little bit, in that if they serve the greater good of college athletics, and they serve the athletes better, and they serve the schools better as a group, as opposed to just these ones that happen to be more popular at the moment we're in right now, then isn't that going to be the rising tide lift all boats, as opposed to, well, as long as I get mine, I don't care what happens on the back end? Because eventually that comes around to haunt you, in that people may not like college athletics the way that they used to, because they're not what they used to be.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, Paul. I think you've got to be careful, right, about looking out for the total enterprise. I think there's that balance of, selfishness and looking out for, your conference, your institutions, but I also think there is a responsibility to think about the health of the entire enterprise. Because if you don't do that, then all of a sudden, right, 10 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going, hey, we just created something that I'm not sure any of us like at all, right? Now we've just got 30 teams, and that's not what college football was supposed to be. That's not, right now it's the second most popular sport, right, in the country. And so I just think we've got to be really, really careful about about how we do this. You know, we spoke into the CFP process. We spoke into where it landed. I think, you know, Commissioner Yormark did a great job on our behalf, and you know, we you know, difficult conversations. I think we fought, scratched, clawed. All right, this is where we landed, and now, man, we got to go make the best of it, right? We've got to go out and do really, really well on the field.
But if the money is so different with what they already get as conferences, and then on top of that, even more with the college football playoff payout, and the possibility that because of who they are, they end up getting 3 or 4 teams in the playoff, can that gap ever be closed?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a question I wrestle with. I'm telling you, every single day. And you know, I don't know that we're ever going to get to a point and place in time when we think about, you know, the TV media contracts. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be a space that's really hard to you know, close the gap. Unless, you know, something happens with viewership, ratings, you know, those types of things. But, you know, I think with the CFP process, it's not going to happen right away. You do have a chance to balance that out. We talked about the look-in. I'm hoping there's additional look-ins so that, you know, we're constantly like in the process of resetting where we are when we think about, you know, particularly performance on the field. So you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity there. You know, there is balance. I think there is fair distribution when we think about the men's basketball NCAA tournament, because you earn those, right?
Right.
You earn those for getting in. You earn those for every time you advance, and so I think that's, you know, that's fair. So it's going to be a challenge, you know, for anybody that I think that's in the ACC or the Big 12, and you know. On top of all of this, you know, everybody's talking about it, but I promise you this: revenue share is coming with student athletes. We don't know yet in what form or shape. You know, I would suspect that it will be something that is permissive rather than mandated. But if you don't do it, then you're not going to compete at the highest level. So you're going to have that layer to navigate and or that challenge. You know, when you think about financing of college athletics. So I don't know. I look at it personally. I look at it as an unbelievable opportunity. You know, at least personally here at Baylor, we're going to figure it out. We're going to find a way to meet that challenge and to continue to be nationally relevant.
Do you feel like every AD in the Big 12 feels the same way? I would think yes, but I mean, is they all knowing what's ahead of them, and everyone goes, guys, we got to fight for each other, not so much against each other? Yeah,
I think every AD is you know, that's their thought process. You know, every institution is different, and you know, there's you know, some have different assets than others. I love where we are, Baylor, as we think about, you know, the rest of the Big 12, and we look at Baylor. No surprise, we've never had the most money, okay, but we've found a way to compete, and we've found a way to scrap it and compete at the highest level. You know, men's basketball has won a national championship recently. Women's 3, football number 5 in the CFP 2 years ago. We have found a way, and so, you know, maybe the challenge gets a little bit greater, but we'll figure it out, and we'll continue to be nationally relevant.
Mack, one of the things I think I've seen, I think that is, I mean, for all the gloom and doom we have, you know, we've got lawsuits against the ACC from 2 other big football brands getting out. Like, everything is bad news.
Oh, how about that? Another story today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Everything's bad news. But at least I think, and I hope I'm not wrong in this, in reading the room, in that most ADs and powers that be and conference commissioners are, every time I heard some people complain about NIL or the way things are, I thought about Dana Carvey's old SNL character, the old man that was like, that's the way it was and we liked it. And it's not that way anymore.
Can you do that again?
That's the way it was and we liked it.
All right.
But they They have that, but now it's more like, look, we can pine for the way things used to be, but the K is out of the barn. Like, there's no way we can do any of that. So let's make it better for what it has to be now going forward, because things have been mandated outside the NCAA that say you can't do what you used to do.
Yeah. Hey, answers that we had for problems 2 years ago, those no longer those no longer count.
It's whack-a-mole,
I
right?
mean, it's we've got to come up with new answers. We've got to be adaptive leaders. We're going to have to evolve. We're going to have to experiment. There's going to be some experiments that are going to work. There's going to be some that don't. We're in a completely different world, and I think those that are going to be able to meet the challenge are going to be those organizations that can have the aptitude to evolve at a pretty rapid pace, and to know and understand that, hey, we're not going to be able to solve everything with technical problems. In fact, most problems are not going to be able to be solved with technical solutions the way we used to do it, right? We're going to have to evolve and think about creative, adaptive type solutions, and know, hey, that solution, right, that we just came up, that's perfect, man, a year from now, it may be obsolete. And so I think the organizations that are able to do that best are going to be the ones that are going to continue to be nationally relevant.
Do you, as a conference, with whether it's your Mark, presidents, ADs, whoever, do you have, because of where everything is today, do you have to have discussions without it being like doomsday, but do you have to have discussions about what the alternate or another option might have to be?
And when you say alternate option,
like if in fact this continues to separate, is that even something you talk about now, or is that negative to talk about it or have it on the table?
Yeah, I think when we're sitting in the room and we're talking about the new CFP model, just candidly, it's a little bit sobering. And so you're talking about, hey, we're going to have to find other ways to overcome this challenge when we think about the financial discrepancy. And so I think that's real in terms of, all right, we've got to find, we're going to have to find a different way in order to remain competitive, in order to remain, nationally relevant. And so, we do have those types of conversations. How can we do, different things to bring in, additional revenues to help close some of that, so yeah, it's very, very much part of our conversation.
Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhoades, in studio with us on 365 Sports.
You brought up revenue sharing a second ago, and there are obviously a bunch of different models that you can use. Revenue sharing is probably the more acceptable term or acceptable way to do it, as opposed to employment. And I think that a lot of people see the shortest way as employment. Just make employees, negotiate a salary for them and call it a day. But then that changes opportunities for sports that are not revenue driven, and affects Title IX, I would think, because once you make somebody an employee, you don't really have to match it with Title IX, because that changes who they are, right? As opposed to the school, they're not student athletes anymore. They work for the school, and makes it difficult. Would employment, the straight up employment, maybe eliminate more opportunities than it creates?
I think what we worry about, whether it's via their employees or they remain, student athletes, I think what we worry about is, the revenue share piece, period, right? And where do we get those revenues, and then do we have the capacity to do them at a certain level and not impact other sport programs? My greatest goal right now at Baylor is that we don't have to take away from any of our sport programs. I'm not saying cut. I'm saying take away. Yeah. The things that they have right now, we don't want to go backwards. Mm-hmm. Okay, for those sport programs, for those coaches, for those student athletes, right? And then Can we lift everybody up? Is it just, football, men's and women's basketball? When we think about revenue share, those are all of the things that we don't know yet, and we're trying to figure out. I think it's a great challenge, if student athletes become employees. Think about, just the lift that would be for every single campus. Think about the responsibility placed upon the student athlete. You're going to be taxed for tuition. You're going to be taxed for your gear you wear. You're going to be taxed for your food. I mean, it's a whole different world. And I think what's interesting is when you I have not talked to one student athlete across the board, several different sports, including football, men's and women's basketball, that has said, yes, I want to be an employee. Most say, no, I don't. And so, it's going to be, and this is where, quite frankly, we need, the help of the government. This is where we need the help of Congress to be able to step in my opinion, and say, hey, employment status is off the table, right? It's off the table. I don't think that's going to end up being a good thing for our student athletes. And, we've got, the Dartmouth case out there with the NLRB. We've got the USC case with the NLRB. We've got the Johnson versus NCA case with the the Fair Labor Standards Act, right? And so so we're waiting to see where those things move and where they head. So the interesting part, and I think is going to be when we revenue share, which way is that going to tip the scales? Are people going to say, see, we told you, you're now paying, you're now sharing revenue, and so they are employees? Or is it going to be completely opposite, and they're going to say, hey, you did that, so we're going to back off now from the employment status? And I think it's going to come down to, hey, quite frankly, it's going to come down to the upcoming election, and what's the makeup of the Senate and what's the makeup of the House, and depending upon where that lands, could certainly have impact on employment status.
You think Congress is ever going to get anything done when it comes? I mean, they don't work real quickly, and then you got another election in 2 years or 4 years or whatever. Is that kind of, you don't even want to have to go there, or is that just you may not have another choice?
I think we are going to need their help in terms of the employment status. We may need their help when we think about antitrust protection, liability protection. If we can't get that through maybe one of the antitrust cases, maybe through a settlement, et cetera. We probably need their help in terms of just the name, image, and likeness and the state laws and preemption of them. And so do I think we will? I do eventually. I think the better question is, can we get their help in terms of some type of federal legislation, even if it's very narrow, even if it's just, hey, for right now, it's just name, image, and likeness. In my opinion, that window is, probably through about midsummer. And then, everybody's focused on the upcoming presidential election. So I'm not a politician, but just having enough conversations, that's my sense of it.
The nervousness I would get about it is that this Congress has only passed 27 bills. So that's not a lot.
Is that good?
That's not good.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that good or bad? I have no idea.
That's bad.
That seems to be bad.
We all learned about the Do Nothing Congress back in they called that in the 1800s was the Do Nothing Congress. They passed like 300, and they were considered lazy by the standards of the time. That's what would get me concerned in that. But I do like NIL to me. Especially, I know it's not as simple as I'm making it, but why don't you take all the greatest hits from the state laws that the states aren't going to fight that much and just make that the law? Like, you don't even have to work on it that hard. Like, okay, Florida's got a good thing. Texas has a good thing. California's got a couple good things. Let's throw this in a greatest hits album and pass it. And then this, like, at least both sides are kind of happy about that.
Yeah.
But that's not really how it works.
Yeah, because nobody's going to sit there and say, hey, my bill's the best bill. This is the one we're using.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So that's why you need Congress's
If
help.
student athletes become employees, does that negate NIL?
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
I think there's no, it doesn't. I think there's there will still be, opportunity, name, image, and likeness. The future of collectives, not sure where that goes, right? I think the Tennessee, Virginia, case, the preliminary injunction, really, safeguarding and protecting, collectives in a sense that they are a commercial entity. They are subject to antitrust, and so you can't cap them. You can't. There needs to be opportunity, for student athletes. And so, yes, student athlete can come onto campus, and the collective can now sit down and share with them what the opportunity is, specifically. And so, those are things again that we're going to have to navigate here in the very near future.
Let me paint a picture, if you don't mind, and thanks for coming in today. You have a $300-some million football stadium, an arena that was $217 million, whatever that number was. That's $500 million that does not include the football ops and everything else you might want to do with all of what you have. And every school has that now. Everybody's getting bigger, better, faster, stronger. You cannot afford to lose this, can you? You cannot afford to let this slip away where there are weeds growing out of these arenas and stadiums, because if you fall too far behind, that just doesn't make sense. You can let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you've crossed the line, right? And once you've crossed that line, it's really hard to come back. And you think about the investment, and a lot of that investment is from donors and others. And so, once you step that far, you're gonna fight to stay there. And I think for us here at Baylor, we're gonna continue to again fight like crazy and be creative and be strategic and work as hard as we can to continue to be relevant. And we have a president that really cares about athletics. We've got a board that really cares about athletics, and I think we've been able again to be really successful. And we don't have the largest budget. We don't have the most money, but we've been able to find a way, and that's going to be the greatest challenge, given these new items, right? Revenue share, CFP, employment status, and we're going to do it. So.
Football spring drill started today. Dave Aranda with some of his coaching changes and a lot of maybe some new faces, of course, on the roster. How intrigued are you with as you watch that go by day, spring drills or spring game into the offseason next year? It seemed like it's been way too long since they played last, because it was in late November, but just watching some of these changing parts.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'd much rather be there than right here. So
no, that's an ender.
No, I'm intrigued. Look, I'm excited to see Dave in terms of calling the defense, and so what does that look like? We have 22 transfers on our roster right now. Of the 22, 18 of them are from four-year schools. So excited, to see those that were here already, how they continue to get better, and the new transfers that have come in, their impact. It's great to see, all of our young men that, we recruited out of high school, another year older. We talked about, our freshmen played more snaps in the Big 12 than any freshman group in the in the Big 12, and to see them advance and be one year older. And then, you talked about all of the coaching changes, both sides of the ball, what Coach Spavital will do, what he'll do, offensively, and some of the additions again along with him on that side of the ball. Mason Miller,
he's coming up around the corner.
Jared Anderson, and Keenan Hall. I think great additions. And then on the defensive side, certainly Jamar Chaney and he's going to be, he's young, and he's going to be a great coach. And then you think about, I call him Noak, but spent a year with Dave at Wisconsin. I've heard nothing but just great things about him and his ability to coach the D line. And would have gone with Coach DeBoer to Alabama if Coach DeBoer didn't need to keep the current D line coach there. And so Jake, I think, is going to do a great job with our offense. And you look at what he did, at Cal in just one year's time, and then the other additions. So excited about it.
All right, go get excited going to watch football practice.
I am. It's a beautiful day outside.
To Memphis and Blacksburg and everywhere else you're going to – parts unknown. Yeah,
look, I love both draws for both the men and women, and our women will play the winner obviously of Vanderbilt Columbia tomorrow night, and then and then we'll see what happens in terms of Virginia Tech and Marshall. We know that they're all American. Their center for Virginia Tech, Elizabeth Kitley, I think she's an unreal player. Her status is unknown, so we'll see what happens there. And then, love our draw in Memphis, and and in the West region, and Colgate is going to be a challenge. Matt Lingle does a great job. I think they finished the league 16-2, and really good defensively. They shoot the ball well, so that's going to be a big game. And then if you can get through that, the winner of Clemson and New Mexico, and I kind of just
peeked. A little bit about the Lobos?
Yes, and then I kind of just peeked ahead a little bit that if we could win those two, maybe a Sweet 16 matchup against Arizona.
Yeah, you don't know about that.
Right? Look, there's also a possibility of a Drew v. Drew matchup for the first time ever.
Absolutely,
at least in public eyes. I know that they've done some of those scrimmages, but no one's ever going to see it unless it happens in this exact format.
Well, it'd be awesome if it did.
How about this? When you think about our men's basketball program, the only program in the country to get a top 3 seed or higher 4 years in a row. So that really speaks volumes in terms of Coach Drew and the entire staff, and both programs have great young people. They just are. It brings a smile to my face when I'm able to hang out and spend time with the student athletes of both of those programs.
Baylor offensive line coach Mason Miller, by the way, just around the corner. Thank you, Mack. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Baylor Director of Athletics Mack Rhoades in studio here at 365 Sports.
Our good friend Brad Booth.